So now we have the Dune sequel we've all been waiting for, which is part 2 of the alleged Liet Kynes controversy. Because let's be honest, some people will probably be like, I don't care. I don't care about Liet Kynes. I don't care about the controversy. It's not really central to the story. I don't care. But let's get right into it. We now finally have some added clarification about the gender swap in Dune with Liet Kynes. Now, I've already done a video going through that it's not a race swap, and I've taken Nerd Cookies to task on that. Now, I want to be clear. I don't want to misquote her. She said, some people would say it's a race swap. I would still disagree. I don't think we have any basis for saying it's a race swap, but that's a respectful disagreement between me and her. But now, in terms of the reporting, she's given us some great insight that Spaihts, we're just going to call him Jon. Jon is the one who had the brainchild behind this. It was he who proposed doing the gender swap. Why? Well, from an interview he's given, it's pretty much just gobbledygook. It's that he feels that Liet Kynes was a symbol of kind of being an ecologist, communication between cultures, and hey, here's an idea. The perfect vessel for this would be a woman, and the most perfect vessel would presumably be a black woman who was British. So it wasn't Denis, it was Jon. So I'm going to give him a lot of respect for at least coming forward and clarifying it. Okay, that's going to get a lot of points. He didn't have to do that. But now we know. So it's his brainchild, and the reasoning is that, well, the Herbert universe was a little too male as it was for its time period. Again, that's what he's alleging, and he's rectifying that. And what do I think about this? And the video is mostly excellent. I think it was very well done. I'll actually try to do an additional video on this because I originally was going to do a video quoting her, but this may take a little bit too long, so I'm just going to give my thoughts and reaction and add some details, which interestingly she skipped over. But it's a really good video. I'd highly recommend it. She goes into how this doesn't really fit the canon or the fictional universe. I think those are really well done remarks. But I go a little bit further because Jon has a kind of mixed record here. So let's take on what he's trying to say, that this is a critical message of Liet Kynes sort of communicating between cultures, and a good vehicle for this would be a woman. And the problem obviously is, wait, why? Why would a woman be the perfect symbol for this? Why? Is there any evidence whatsoever that women are much better at communicating or better communicators? He doesn't seem to present any. It's just taken for granted they are, and we're going to put them in the story. Well, again, I presumably think you need more reason or evidence for this, and he doesn't provide any, so that's really problematic. And then we get into the accusation that the universe of Dune is very male-oriented. I would say that's an extremely childish and very narrow interpretation at best. It is true that most of the characters, yes, in the first novel are male. We'll put aside the obvious refutation with Aaliyah, the Bene Gesserit, Shani, Ur-Yulan. You go through the list, there's quite a lot of female characters, and we're not even getting into the supporting characters because that would take us a long, long time. So saying it's a very male universe is like, I think you want to be careful in that. Even with the first book, where there are many men in the first book, and they are the major characters. Saying it's a male universe is being very, very premature. And he doesn't seem to cite the larger canon. So to be fair, let's stick to the first book. Although the nightmare here is that he may be helping to write Dune Messiah, and perhaps more of the Dune saga. So I look forward to that. I think it's just rough counting the characters and saying, well, they're men and they're central to the story. Both counts are very questionable. There are many men, but women are vital to the story. And in terms of their narrative role, that's, I think, at least a little bit fuzzy. It is true that Paul is the central hero of the story. That's definitely true. But to say that the women characters are just side characters or just make cameos is not true. I mean, we're getting Ur-Yulan's journal articles. Shani is very critical to how Paul becomes integrated into the Fremen. Lady Jessica teaches the Fremen a fighting technique. I mean, again, these are not small story details. These are very vital. So the first two things he's bringing up just don't make a whole lot of sense. The communication thing, male-oriented thing are really just myths he's making up. But from a larger perspective, this is really troublesome that this is a person who's done some other films, which I'll be frank, I barely remember because they weren't that good. So Passengers wasn't that good, and that had Jennifer Lawrence, who's now this very pro-radical feminist. And that's fine. I'm not judging her. I'm just saying she is. So apparently it has a very feminist tinge. I thought it was a very dumbed-down version of The Shining in space, frankly. And he's also done Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is really notorious because it has a lot of tons of racism and sexism in that one. And be perfectly fair and honest, and I double-checked this, in an interview, he does specify that it's not his decision in terms of doing crazy things with gender and race in terms of production. So he's not responsible, that's fine. But he was asked for his own opinion, and he approved of it. He said, no, I thought it was fine. Yeah, I thought Tilda Swinton as, quote, an Asian Buddhist monk, that's a right choice, because Tilda's a great actor. I'm sure she's going to overcome any fan criticism of this. While she doesn't overcome my criticism, I still think it's an incredibly stupid decision. It's being really disrespectful to the source material, and really did not help the film. But just judging on the aesthetics alone, he's given us just a few okay movies. He seems to be an okay writer. Frankly, he's sort of in this weird nether region of a hack/okay writer. So if you're in that kind of vicinity, I think you want to be very careful if you're going to be very disrespectful to Frank Herbert. And I think he is being really disrespectful. I'm not going to softball it. He's not providing any evidence whatsoever for this disrespect. And his interpretation at best is laughable. So I'm really not clear what he's standing on to sort of think, yeah, we need to modernize Frank. Now, I like the books and I appreciate Frank and I think he's a genius, but I got to be honest, that some of the dialogue, you read it now, is laughable. It works perfectly fine when you read it, but if you were to try to speak it today, you'd be like, wow, this doesn't sound right. We find artistic license to modernize this or that aspect if it's relevant to the story or it helps with the style or flow of the narrative. And I get it. He has to get a job. He's not going to be disrespectful to Kevin Feige. So I get it. He's going to be supporting MCU racism, but I don't have to. It's not in my self-interest because I want to make screenplays too, but I think it's really credible for him to not be that good a writer, be very disrespectful, and he has a hypocritical history of being okay with racism as well as sexism. He's looking down on Frank Herbert and his work and saying, you don't have the credibility to say these things, you don't have the evidence to make these accusations, and your own track record at best is extremely shaky. But unlike him, I'm going to be fair-minded and even-handed. We're going to wait for the film. I still would recommend the film. I think the, quote, woke politics, frankly, I think is being exaggerated. I don't really consider what they did with Liet Kynes woke, but is it not canonical? Yes, it's not canonical. Is it being disrespectful? Yes, I think it's being disrespectful. Is it being a little political? Yes. And you can say, well, how's that not woke? Well, woke I would consider be highly ideological. I still think he's misinterpreting stuff. There's no doubt about it. But there is an ecological message in Dune. Now, if they're overemphasizing it, I think that's wrong. But emphasizing it to some extent is legitimate. What they're doing to Liet Kynes is not legitimate, but you got to be honest, she's a minor character. She's not vital to the story. So them screwing around with the character, they don't have to do it. They shouldn't be doing it, but it's not going to destroy the story. So I'd still recommend part one as being pretty faithful. But is it cynical? Yes. I don't think it's woke, either for reasons of ego or stupidity or just trying to follow a modern trend like, oh, we just need to be pro-women. We just need to be pro-feminist. I get it. As a white man, I'm sure he has to do something to get jobs and say, well, why are we going to hire you? Why don't we just hire a minority writer? Oh, no. I'm going to give you strong women. In fact, I'm going to give you strong non-white women. Oh, okay. This guy's good. He's one of the good guys. Yeah, let's hire him. Despite him being pretty racist with the other script? That's the way it works. It's depressing, but now we have more clarification. I don't think this destroys the first part. I'm going to be fair and judge it, and if he does great writing for it, I'm going to give him his due praise, but I'd be highly stunned because so far his track record as just a writer, not even getting into the politics, is not that strong. But then getting into the track record and into the politics, it's horrific. He's like the last person who should be saying these kinds of things or having this attitude. When he has enough credibility and he does enough classical science fiction that's being talked about for 60 years, then maybe he can speak. Until then, he really should be trying to stick to the canon as close as possible. And if he's going to alter things, he should be doing things for story-relevant reasons, whereas this just feels like he's just trying to do things to be trendy and modern and get more jobs for money, which I don't respect that much. But I do respect him at least being honest with his reasons why he did it. I don't think they're very good reasons, but at least now we have clarifications on this controversy. Thanks for listening.